Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm the host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement, and I am glad you're here. We need more of us, way more of us. We've got hundreds of thousands of men. We need millions of men in this battle to reclaim and restore masculinity. And guys, it is a battle. It's a battle against culture and society at large. It's against the powers that would be, even our elected officials, school board members. It's clear and it's evident that there is, at a minimum, a dismissal of masculinity, but I would say a downright attempt to undermine, erode, diminish, dismiss, and eliminate masculinity altogether. And it's my job to help restore that, to reclaim that to where it needs to be, where we are able to lead ourselves, lead our families, lead our businesses, our communities, and every other facet of life. So today I'm going to be talking with you about something that I think has the power to be the most important decision that you make. And that's the decision that you make with regards to who you decide to be with for potentially the rest of your life. Now, fortunately, I've made a good decision. I didn't have this all dialed in, what I'm going to share with you today, which is 10 green flags to look for in a woman. But I got lucky in a lot of ways, and maybe I attracted her, finding the right woman. I don't know. I think I was more lucky than anything else almost 20 years ago. But I have identified some things that I've seen in thousands and thousands of men when they're partnered up with a woman that generally lend to a more successful relationship. Now, I'm not going to be telling you that if you find somebody with all of these characteristics and traits that everything is going to work out perfectly. I can't make that prediction, but I will tell you, if you listen to what I have to share here with regards to green flags to look for with women, then I think you can have a better chance of having this not only succeed in your marriage, but have it thrive and have this partner in life who you honor and she honors you, and you enjoy each other's company and you go take on the world together. Before I get into all of that, just want to make a very quick mention of our friends and show sponsors over at Origin USA. As you know, I'm an advocate for American-made products, and everything they make is 100% made and also sourced in America. If you followed back with their denim, for example, or their leather on their boots, you're going to follow that back to a field somewhere in the United States where the cotton was grown, or where the leather was secured and where it was tanned to make these boots, which is here in the rural woods of Maine. So if you want to support what they're doing, you believe in America, you believe in American made, and you want to help with the resurgence of American manufacturing, check out originusa.com. I would suggest that you pick up a pair of their Delta jeans. Got a little bit of a light stretch to them, so you can move and work and do all the things you need to do as a man, but they also look and feel good, and they're durable. So those are the Delta jeans. Go check them out at originusa.com and use the code ORDER, ORDER, to save some money when you do. All right, guys, let's talk about 10 green flags to look for in a woman. The reason I even started thinking about this is the other day we were sitting down, my wife and I and our 4 children, for dinner, and she had made burgers. And for whatever reason, the burgers were just exceptionally good. She's a great cook. She bakes. She does a lot of food preservation and canning and cooking and baking and all of that stuff. So she really knows her way around the kitchen. But these burgers were phenomenal. I don't know why they were so good. And I asked her, and she's like, I don't know. They're how I normally cook them. I don't know why they're so good, but I pressed her on it. And she told me something that I didn't know, that she saves bacon grease and then she uses that bacon grease in other meals. So she'll have bacon and she'll use it in burgers, and she'll use it in all kinds of other products and whatever else she's making. I had no idea. And apparently she's been doing this for years, but I had no idea. So I shared this kind of half jokingly, like, look for a woman who saves bacon grease and uses it in other meals and you'll be fine. And I was blown away with the response that I got. A lot of guys, their women do the same thing. They didn't know, or their grandma, their mom did that. And although it's kind of a joke, there's also, I think, maybe some slight validity to it. You know, if she's that thoughtful or that aware and she's great in the kitchen, then maybe that's something to look for. But as I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, I started to think about what other factors or what other features you should be looking for in a woman. Because most of the time what we hear is red flags, right? The things that you don't want and you want to be aware of. And those are important, but what should you be looking for specifically? Because it's important to look for what you don't want, but it's also important to look for what you do want. So what I did over the last couple of days is I really thought about what are some characteristics, some features, some behaviors, some thoughts and mindsets that she would need to have that for me would be a good indicator that this is a woman that I potentially would want to partner with for the rest of my life. This is a major, major decision that you're going to be making. And for those of you who are already married, I want you to ask if your wife has these traits and characteristics. And if not, I'm not saying, throw her to the curb or you need a divorce, but I think that you should be working towards these things. And maybe there's some conversations that need to be had, or maybe she wants to listen to this podcast, and maybe you want to talk with her about these things in a tactful, respectful way, because I think it's going to set you guys up for success. And that's what I want. I want you guys to thrive. I want your kids to thrive. And we know that when kids have both of the parents involved and at home, and they're honoring each other and love each other, that they have a greater likelihood of success. And so do the husband and wife as well. So let's break this down. Number one, and these are not in any order, guys, so just take it for what it is. Number one, you want to look for somebody who has a great relationship with her parents. And again, like, none of these are deal breakers. None of these mean that if your wife or your potential wife doesn't have any of these characteristics, that she's going to be a loser, that you're going to have a divorce. It doesn't mean that. I just think it's going to increase your odds and your rate of success. So take that for what it is. She has a great relationship with her parents. All right. Because if she doesn't have a great relationship with her mom, odds are that she's going to have less likelihood of knowing how a woman acts and a woman shows up and how a woman behaves. And same thing with her father. If she doesn't have a great relationship with her father, did she ever have the male role model in her life? Did she ever have a male presence in her life? And then also, how does that spill over into the way that she views masculinity and manliness? Because if she had, for example, an abusive father, and she's linked abusiveness with men or masculinity, then don't you think that's probably going to create some sort of a rift in your relationship? Absolutely. So I think it's a green flag if your wife or your potential wife has a great relationship with her parents. She still talks with her mom. She still talks with her dad. They have activities and things that they do together. They enjoy spending their time together. They respect, they honor. These are all things that I would look for and think, well, that's a pretty good thing, is that she has a model for how a woman shows up, for how a woman behaves. She had a woman in her life who taught her and coached her and led her into being the kind of woman that you would like to partner with. And then also there's a man in her life who was modeling masculinity and honoring himself as a man and showing up as a father and husband and worker and employee and business owner and leader in the community and every other facet. So that's a green flag, guys. If you can find somebody who has a great relationship with their parents, then I would say that's something to definitely be aware of. All right. Number two, she honors femininity and masculinity. All right. It's very important that she honors herself as a woman, that she knows that she can be lovely and kind and empathetic and caring, and even tap into that emotional intelligence. Because if you don't, and you have somebody who's wanting to act more masculine, then there's going to be a butting of heads, or there's going to be you who's going to be maybe having to move away from that masculinity and moving more into that feminine role. So what I'm looking for is somebody in my life who is very feminine. Now, that doesn't mean she's delicate. It doesn't mean she's incapable of doing things. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. It just means that she likes to be a woman. She finds value, intrinsic value, in being a woman. And she believes also that there's intrinsic value in men, that masculinity is not inherently evil, as much of society would have you believe, that masculinity is inherently positive and constructive and supportive and even aggressive and dominant at times in order to achieve desired objectives and outcomes. So guys, like, if you're dating somebody who doesn't honor femininity, if you have one of these extreme feminist women, like, that's going to create some real challenges in your relationship. If you have somebody who's even at the slightest little inkling a man hater, then of course that's going to create a problem in your relationship. And if you think it's bad now, she's on her best behavior. Wait 10 years, wait 15 years, wait 20 years. If you think it's bad now, it only gets worse, especially as she's fed all of this bullshit from society and from elected officials and from schooling that tell her, you don't need a man, and you can do everything a man needs to do in order to prove yourself as a woman. Guys, we're looking for lovely, empathetic, kind, nurturing women. And alternatively, she honors and respects and loves the fact that you're a masculine man who's physical, who's capable, who can assert himself in positive and constructive ways. And if you find a woman who does that, then you're well on your path. All right, number 3, she has friends that you like, or at least good friends, friends that are good for her. That's probably a better way to say it. Friends who are good for her, because you're not going to like every friend she has, and they're not going to all like you. And that's completely understandable. But like, she has to have friends that are good for her. Because guys, if you get involved with a woman who has friends who are bad for her, they're bad influences, they ask her to do dumb shit, they're still out, at 30, 35, 40 years old, getting wasted and getting drunk and running around and flirting with guys, like that's not going to be conducive for a relationship. It really isn't. And so a lot of guys will overlook red flags because they like this woman, or they're in love, or the sex is great, or whatever it might be. And I'm here to tell you that her friends are a big indicator of how she's going to act. So if she has friends who are good for her, then odds are she's going to be a better person because she's around those people. But if she's around friends who are not good for her and are bad influences on her, then she's going to start acting like that. And you're going to have a real problem on your hands, because those friends are going to undermine you. They're going to work against you. They're going to create problems for her. They're going to put little rifts in the relationship. They're going to sow seeds of discontent. And it's not going to be conducive to you having a meaningful and significant relationship with this woman. So it's not that you would look for somebody who doesn't have friends. Quite the opposite, actually. I'm going to talk about that here shortly. But they better be friends who are good for her. And if she's not willing to find friends who are good for her, I would strongly consider that as to whether or not you want to get into a relationship with that person. Now, a lot of you guys might say, well, Ryan, that's not fair because she's her own person. And if her friends aren't good, maybe she can be a good influence. Hey, look, if you're willing to make that risk and make that gamble, all the power to you. And I genuinely wish you luck. I do. I wish you luck. But I don't think it's going to pan out well for you. I don't think it's going to play in your favor. And that might be a deal breaker. So consider that. Meet her friends, get to know her friends, ask what she's doing, ask how she's spending her time and who she's spending her time with, because that's going to be a large indicator of how she behaves and shows up. All right. Number 4, she has her own hobbies and interests. Guys, she doesn't need to be involved in everything you do. She doesn't need to like everything that you do. She doesn't need to want to do all the things that you do, but she damn well better have her own hobbies and interests. Because I've talked with thousands of men at this point, over 6.5 years of doing this, who will admit to me that their wife just kind of stays at home and doesn't really do much. They don't have things they're interested in. They don't have hobbies. They don't have activities, and they just kind of sit at home, and it's like exhausting. It's got to be exhausting for a woman, but it's got to be also exhausting for the men in these relationships, because they can't ever get any sort of reprieve or escape from these relationships. So guys, find a woman who has her own hobbies and interests. And I've talked about this at length. Edify her in those things, uplift her, support her, honor in those things. If she likes beekeeping or race car driving, or she wants to go to the gun range, or she likes to hunt, or she likes to sew, or she likes to cook or bake, or paint, or take pictures, or go on nature walks, I don't know, whatever it is, be supportive of that. You want somebody who has their own hobbies and interests that they're excited about, that they're passionate about, that they're very involved with. Because here's the deal. When a woman has those hobbies and activities and interests, and she goes out and she engages in those things, she's always going to come back better, just like you do. When you go to jujitsu, or you go on a hike, or you go hunting, or whatever it is you do, you come back more engaged, you come back more energized, ready to be totally into the relationship because you're rejuvenated. Well, the same goes for her. So if she's not like that, and she's just sitting around at home and doesn't really have her own things she's interested in, man, that's a problem. So guys, if your wife doesn't have something right now, or your girlfriend or potential wife doesn't have something right now, like, you better have a good long discussion about working her towards something that she could be excited about and really start to pursue. So my wife personally does a lot of gardening. I already talked about this, does food preservation, cooking, baking. She has her bees that she's very involved with. She loves her bees. So she does a lot of homesteading type things. And I'll tell you what, I love it. I love it. I love that she has her own things. I love that I don't need to be there at her every second of every day, that she can go out and do her own thing and enjoy life. And that goes into point number 5, which is that she's independent. She's independent. All right. She doesn't need you, guys. She wants you. Right. If you find a woman who's just clingy and needy and needs to call you every 2 minutes when you're gone, okay, that feels really good. That strokes the ego for a little bit, but at some point that's going to get exhausting. And so what you want to do is you want to find somebody who's independent. Now, of course, this can go over the edge, right? She can be so fiercely independent that anytime you suggest anything, she's going to take that to the extreme and wonder why you're badgering her or that you're trying to control her. So yeah, it becomes a problem. But then you get into point number 2 I made, which is that femininity, masculinity dynamic. So, but what you do want is you do want somebody who's independent. They're resilient. They're independent. They don't need you all the time. They can get by on their own. They can do things on their own. They can figure things out. They're resilient. And like, you don't need to be there emotionally, physically all the time. Because again, that's going to get exhausting. Again, I think all of these points, and I'm thinking about this now, are all very intertwined. You know, she's going to be independent if her mother and father taught her that. She's going to be independent, but not so independent that she isn't willing to partner with a man if she honors femininity and masculinity and the power of having both. So they're all very, very connected. But you do want to look for somebody who's independent, not dependent on you or anybody else for her own physical, mental, or emotional well-being. So that was number 5. So let's get to number 6. She despises drama and gossip. You want a very even keel person. Again, this is the dichotomy here, right? Because we're talking about femininity. And I think women generally have a higher emotional intelligence. They're able to tap into that emotional feeling side of the equation more readily than I think men are. But that can go too far, right? Where they're driven by the way they feel. They're driven by their emotions. They're driven by even drama and gossip and all of these little things that people don't need to get involved in. You know, I personally despise gossip and drama. And if I start to hear it, whether it's in the work environment or just with my own friends, like I disengage because I don't have time for it. I don't have the mental, emotional, or physical capacity to be able to deal with bullshit. And if she likes that, if she likes the drama and there are people who do, you know, there are, and she likes that and she gets wrapped up in that and she gets consumed by it and it takes up her time and attention and energy, man, exhausting for you. That is going to play on you. So you want somebody who is even keel, somebody who's mature enough not to get down the rabbit hole of gossip and drama and baggage and bullshit. That's all I'll say on that, because you know what that looks like. You know what drama looks like. That's a red flag, drama is. But if you have somebody who doesn't enjoy that and they stay away from it, then you're going to have a better time. Number 7, her goals are aligned with yours, guys. Her goals are aligned with yours. And inevitably, I'll have people say, you know, everybody has different goals and desires. And I get that. You know, my wife, she doesn't have the same goals that I do, but our goals are aligned. Right? Like the things that she does around the house and at home to make this house a home are not my own personal goals. Those are her personal goals, but they're very much in alignment with mine. My desire to go out into the workforce and provide and do something special here with Order of Man aren't necessarily her goals and desires, but they're very much aligned with hers, because as I do my work, she's able to do her work and they're complementary. They're aligned. That's what I mean when I say they're aligned. They're not the same, but they're moving in the same direction. So you need to start talking about these things. And I'll tell you, there are millions and millions of men out there who aren't having these kind of conversations, especially when they're vetting. And I'm using that term deliberately. It may sound a little harsh if you've never heard it like that before, but when you're dating a woman and you're wanting to get serious with somebody and you're wanting to even commit to this person for a lifetime, you better vet her. All right. And if you're not, and she better vet you too, by the way. Okay. This goes both ways. But if you're not having the conversations about what do you want to do in your life? Do you want a career? Do you want kids? Do you want to stay at home? Do you want to be in the workforce? Do you want to live on the East Coast? Do you want to live on the West Coast? Like, these are all critical conversations. And by the way, any of them can be deal breakers. And the only person that gets to determine what's a deal breaker and what isn't is you. You get to decide that, not anybody else. So you better start talking with her about these serious things. What does she want out of life? What does she hope to accomplish? Because if you don't talk about it, you might luck out and find somebody who does have aligned goals, or you might find somebody whose goals are at direct odds with what you want to have in your life. You know, for example, if you want 5 kids and she doesn't want children at all, how's that going to work? I mean, one of you is going to have to sacrifice in that, right? Either she's going to sacrifice and have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 kids, or you're going to sacrifice and you're not going to have any. And that's a problem, right? Because then there's animosity, there's bitterness, there's resentment because you went along with something she wanted or vice versa. And then life is harder and you hate each other. You despise each other because you blame the other person for not being able to accomplish your goals and desires and objectives. So make sure that your goals are aligned, guys. And if they're not, again, might be a deal breaker. I can't tell you whether or not it is, but I'm giving you permission as if you needed it from me that any of these could be deal breakers. And you need to have these serious conversations and think long and hard about the way that the rest of your life is going to go. All right. Number 8, this one's going to fire some people up, but she needs to be politically and spiritually aligned with you. Now, can it work? Again, when I was talking about the fact that she had a great relationship with her parents, can it work if she doesn't? Yeah, I think it can. I think that if she's not aligned politically or spiritually with you, that it probably can work. But I would say that's the exception, not the rule, because these are charged topics, especially politics in today's world and climate. And if she's diametrically opposed to you when it comes to politics and spirituality, like how's that going to work? Now, you might be of a different political party or affiliation. You might be a different denomination when it comes to your spirituality. Yeah, sure. But like if at the root of the way you believe is completely opposite, how's that going to work? Especially when you guys bring kids into the world, because now your decisions and her decisions are going to be impacting those kids. And can you imagine trying to raise a child politically or spiritually to have some of these beliefs about culture and society and religion, and she's the opposite of that, or vice versa? Like, again, resentment, contention, animosity, bitterness, which all leads to divorce. So, not to mention the headache. And look, let's talk about politics for a minute. I don't even care what side of the aisle you're on. If you're more conservative, and she's more left leaning or liberal, that's going to be annoying for both of you. and I would say, if you look at the spectrum of whether it's spirituality or politics, the greater the divide, like the further right you are or left you are, and right or left she is, that the greater the divide there, the more challenging it's going to be. But you better take it into consideration that she's politically, culturally, even, and spiritually aligned with you. And if she's not, I kind of think you're gambling. You're just kind of rolling the dice and hopefully it'll work out. And that's not a great strategy for long-term success. Number 9, guys, she honors herself. She honors herself. She honors her word. She honors her body by taking care of it. She, again, this goes back to the point number 2 about honoring femininity. She loves being a woman, so much so that she works on it. She tries to improve in that department. She tries to make herself better. That goes to point number 4. She has her own hobbies and interests. But guys, if you find somebody who doesn't honor herself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that's not good. That is not good at all. So you want somebody who's proud of herself, who honors herself, who takes care of herself, who spends time improving and getting better, and believing that they have real value to add. A lot of guys I talk with have spouses who have mental illness. Some even I've heard, bipolar. Postpartum is a big deal as you start to have kids. And I'm not saying, well, I'll say it this way. A lot of these guys kind of get into that after the fact. And if you've already committed, then I think you really owe it to her to honor her and honor the commitments and values you've made. But if you start to see some of this stuff ahead of time, you really have to ask yourself, is this somebody I want to be with? Like, if she doesn't take care of herself, she treats her body horribly. She has a bad past. Again, gambling. Could it work? Maybe. Maybe she changes, and people do. People do change and they get better and they improve, or they come across information, or they find somebody in their life that gets them on the track. But you're gambling, and I wouldn't gamble with this. So find somebody who honors herself, who treats herself right, who believes she's valuable, and you're going to have a better time of it. All right. And the last one here, guys, this is so important. So important is that she's financially responsible. She has to be financially responsible, guys. If she's not financially responsible, oh my gosh, can you imagine what life is going to look like every time you have to talk about money and she comes to the relationship with 50, 60, 80, $100,000 worth of debt and she spends like it's going out of style or the world's going to end and she's broke and she has the mindset of poverty. Like you're not going to get ahead in life. You're not. And she doesn't need to have everything dialed in with your finances. You probably don't, but she needs to be at least responsible about it so that you guys can make decisions together about how you're going to spend your money and your resources. Look for somebody who's financially responsible. And you can tell, I mean, if you're going to start dating a woman and vetting this woman to potentially ask her to marry you, then I think the least you should be doing is asking about her, not only the other things I talked about here, but also asking about how she handles money and what she believes about money and how much money she wants to make and how much money you think they need. And how do you feel about spending? Like, ask these questions. You can start uncovering a lot of this stuff very, very quickly. And you should. So guys, I know this one today was geared more towards our single brothers or those who maybe are in a relationship and thinking about taking this to the next level. But I'll also say this. If you're already committed to a woman, you've already asked her to marry you, you need to honor that commitment. And you need to really work towards ensuring that she's got these points dialed in. And again, if you've already made this commitment, it's not a deal breaker, but you need to be working towards ensuring that she has these green flags so that your life can get better and her life can get better and your kids' lives can get better and everybody can improve because you guys are together. She's reasonable. She's got these green flags. Maybe I'll talk about men's green flags as well, because I know we have some female listeners too. I don't want this to come across as me, going after or picking on women or saying that you should leave if a woman doesn't have all of these, isn't able to check all of these off the list. I don't want it to come across as this, but guys, my job is to give you the tools and resources and conversations that you need to succeed in life. And who you choose to marry and who you choose to partner with is a huge, huge component of that. And so it's very important that I give you this information, even at risk of offending some people because they don't hit all these boxes. Now, you're going to let me know how you feel and you're going to give me some feedback. Maybe I missed some things. Maybe some additional green flags need to be on this list, or maybe you think I'm off on one of these things. And if that's the case, cool. Let's talk about it. I'm always open for discussion if it's done reasonably and respectfully. And if it's not going to be, then I'm just not interested. So let's recap here. Number one, again, not in any order. Number one, I guess even the prerequisite is that, as I said earlier, she saves bacon grease for future meals. But outside of that, number one, great relationship with her parents. That's a green flag. Number two, she honors femininity and also masculinity. Number three, she has friends that you like, or I think I changed that one, not friends that you like, friends that are good for her. That's what I said. Friends that are good for her. Number four, she has her own hobbies and interests. Number five, she's independent. Number six, she despises drama and gossip. Number seven, her goals are aligned with your goals. Number eight, she's aligned politically and spiritually. Also, I'd say culturally as well, because there's a lot of cultural issues that people might differ on as well. Number nine, she honors herself by taking care of herself, mentally, physically, emotionally, etc. And number 10, she's financially responsible. That isn't exhaustive. And I'm not here to tell you that if she hits all of those boxes, that she is absolutely going to be the one to work everything out with and all your wildest dreams will come true. And I'm also not saying that if she doesn't hit all of these, that she's going to be, a horrible person and no good for you and it's bound for divorce. I'm just saying these are green flags. These are things to consider. These are conversations you need to have. These are topics you need to discuss, and you need to be aware of these things so that you have the best odds of success in your relationship and in your life. All right, you guys, there are the 10 green flags to look for in a woman. Guys, we'll be back next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.